Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava
Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Chaitra Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Ganga Mai ki, Yamuna Mai ki, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani ki, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki, Grantarashim Bhagavatam ki, Nityago Premanande, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru Sri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatamandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Kadamayan Dadati Swapadantikam Vandayam Shri Guru Shri Utaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagadatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopaka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishwavanu Sute Devi Paramami Hari Priye Vancha Kapatarabhishta Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Mare Kabando Matsangin Madguru Manmadana Madmistaraka Madbhagya Marananda Namostite Asari Sari Tadaye Natini Chochatakara Hanamuncha Karachimam Premnorit Puraha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. Welcome back to Bhagavatam Sangha. We're happy to be back. We took a 2-week hiatus, 3-week hiatus maybe. We're happy to have everybody back. We'd like to welcome His Grace Mridanga Prabhu. Mridanga Prabhu was, when I first started coming to this temple, he was here. So I took him to Rath Yatra once. We went to Rath Yatra together, me, you, Bala Gopinath, Gangeya, and Elijah. It was fun. He gave me a lot of nectar. So happy to see you, and I feel quite unworthy to give class in front of you. So please give me your blessings. What the heck? Does anybody remember exactly where we were at? We're on chapter 8 in the prayers of Queen Kunti. Yeah. I think we finished. I think we got. I think we got to Jan Maishvaya Shrita Shribir. Edamana Madapuman Naivart Had Yabadatum Vai Twamakinchana Gotram. That's what I remember. Last verse. 26. Yeah, we're at 27. So we'll do a little bit of a review as we've been doing. It has been a while. So can someone explain to me why these, and what are the circumstances in which these prayers are happening? Anybody have any idea?
Give us the background on Parikshit Maharaj.
Yes. So directly after the Ashvatthama incident, because at the beginning, of course, we heard the introduction and we heard some of these questions by the sages. And then we heard some history of the Srimad Bhagavatam in regards to Narada Muni and Vyasadev's conversation, how the Bhagavatam came about. And then the question arose among Sutta and Shanaka, how did the great sage Shukadeva Goswami come to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam in the bank of the Ganges for 7 days? And how did the great King Maharaj Parikshit come to hear the Bhagavatam for 7 days on the bank of the Ganges? So therefore there was some background into Maharaj Parikshit's birth, and we heard about the ending of the battle of Kurukshetra, Ashvatthama throwing the Brahmastra, Arjuna countering it by the grace of Krishna, and these events that took place in regards to this. And of course, Ashvatthama was punished. He came back and he tried to kill Uttara with another Brahmastra. Krishna protected her, protected Parikshit Maharaj in the womb. Now we're hearing at the funeral of the Kurus, after that battle had been completed, Arjuna and the Pandavas, Krishna, Karna, and Kripacharya and the various people that were left after the battle, they began to have some last funeral rites for those who had died. And then after this was completed, Krishna began to leave for Dwarka. And as he was leaving, Kunti approached him and began to pray as follows. And so we've heard some of these very beautiful prayers. Vipara Shantata Shashvat Tattva Tattva Jagadguru Bhavato Darshanam Yatsyad Punar Bhavata Darshanam Apunar Bhava Darshanam. That, she's praying for calamities, and there are these very powerful prayers, deep philosophical truths into the nature of Krishna, starting with the Alaksha Sarvabhutanam. So many nice prayers that we're hearing about Krishna's position. And so now we're going to continue on to 27. And 26 is it's a very famous verse. Janmaishvarya Shruta Shribir Edamana Madapuman Naivartat Yabadatim Vai Kamakinchana Gotram, wherein Kunti is praying. And this verse is a very powerful purport and very important verse, wherein Kunti is praying that one who has Janma, who's born of very high parentage, he's not very much qualified to approach Krishna. Janmaishvarya, who's very opulent, is not very much qualified to approach Krishna. Shruta, who's very learned in so many things, that does not make him qualified to approach Krishna. And Shri is very beautiful, that does not make one qualified to approach Krishna. Rather, Krishna is approached by those who are materially destitute. And the purport of that verse, Prabhupada, of course, he explains that although the holy name is sufficient in itself to deliver every person who chants it, there's some quality to that calling out. And so we have to assure that the quality of our chanting is that of desperation, that of genuinely calling out to Krishna as I need help out of this world. And so this is one of those lessons that comes in this verse. So why was Kunti, just to continue the review, important points that we'll remember from the prayers of Queen Kunti if we're ever to go on and think about this and have these prayers inspire us. What wisdom can we take out? Why was Kunti praying for calamities to happen again and again?
Because it brought Krishna back into their life, their direct association.
So-called calamities are welcome because they give us an opportunity to remember the Lord, which means for us liberation and the ability to come closer to Krishna. And in opposite of that, security, so-called security in the material world is a type of danger. What security do we have? We have no security, and we're always thinking that I'm going to have a secure position. I'm going to secure this situation in life or that situation in life. Then I can practice Krishna consciousness peacefully. And in this way, we are cheated by the material energy because there's no position in life wherein Krishna can't destroy or take away. I mean, I just heard this tragedy. This guy, he was in Superior. Superior is a really beautiful place close to my hometown. It's a town next to my hometown. And there's these helicopter tours they do around Superior. And there's some like rock climbing places, and someone had done some high roping. And this guy, he got on this helicopter the day of his wedding with 4 of his nieces, and they went for a helicopter ride, and the helicopter hit the high line, and boss finished. It's really tragic, quite tragic and horrible. But it just goes to show us an example of how this material world is so dangerous. It's so bad, and it's part of the perception of a spiritual person to see that the spiritual world is. The material world is completely full of danger at every step. It's a very, very dangerous place, and we should make our focus on what matters, and that's Krishna consciousness. So text 27, very famous and powerful verse. Namo kinchana vitaya nivata guna vritaye atma ramaya shantaya kaivalya pataye namaha. My obeisances are unto you, who are the property of the materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with these actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and are the master of the monists. So Prabhupada says, a living being is finished as soon as there is nothing to possess. Therefore, a living being cannot be, in the real sense of the term, a renouncer. A living being renounces something for gaining something more valuable. A student sacrifices his childish proclivities to gain better education. A servant gives up his job for a better job. Similarly, a devotee renounces the material world not for nothing, but for something tangible in spiritual value. Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, and others gave up their worldly pomp and prosperity for the sake of the service of the Lord. They were big men in the worldly sense. The Goswamis were ministers in the government service of Bengal, and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami was the son of a big zamindar of his time. But they left everything to gain something superior to what they previously possessed. The devotees are generally without material prosperity, but they have a very secret treasure house in the lotus feet of the Lord. There is a nice story about Srila Sanatan Goswami. He had a touchstone, and this stone was left in the pile of refuse. A needy man took it, but later on wondered why the valuable stone was kept in such a neglected place. He therefore asked Sanatan for the most valuable thing, and then he was given the holy name of the Lord. A kinchana means one who has nothing to give materially. A factual devotee or Mahatma does not give anything material to anyone, because he has already left all material assets. He can, however, deliver the supreme asset, namely the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he is the only property of the factual devotee. The touchstone of Sanatan Goswami, which was thrown in the rubbish, was not the property of the Goswami, otherwise it would not have been kept in such a place. This specific example is given for the neophyte devotee, just to convince them that the material hankerings and spiritual advancement go ill together. Unless one is able to see everything as spiritual in relation with the Supreme Lord, one must always distinguish between spirit and matter. A spiritual master like Sanatan Goswami, although personally able to see everything as spiritual, set this example for us only because we have no such spiritual vision. Advancement of material vision or material civilization is a great stumbling block for spiritual advancement. Such material advancement entangles the living being in the bondage of a material body, followed by all sorts of material miseries. Such material advancement is called anartha, or things not wanted. Actually, this is so. In the present context of material advancement, one uses lipstick at a cost of 50 cents, and there are so many unwanted things which are all products of the material conception of life. By diverting attention to so many unwanted things, human energy is spoiled without achievement of spiritual realization, the prime necessity of human life. The attempt to reach the moon is another example of spoiling energy, because even if the moon is reached, the problems of life will not be solved. The devotees of the Lord are called akinchanas because they have practically no material assets. Such material assets are all products of the three modes of material nature. They foil spiritual energy, and thus, the less we possess such products of material nature, the more we have a good chance for spiritual progress. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no direct connection with the material activities. All his acts and deeds, which are exhibited even in the material world, are spiritual and without affection for the modes of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that all his acts, even his appearance and disappearance, in and out of the material world, are transcendental, and one who knows this perfectly shall not take his birth again in this material world. The material disease is due to the hankering after and lording it over material nature. This hankering is due to an interaction of the three modes of material nature. And neither the Lord nor the devotees have attachment for such false enjoyment. Therefore, the Lord and the devotees are called nivritta guna vritti, The perfect Nivritta Gunavritti is the Supreme Lord because he never becomes attracted by the modes of material nature, whereas living beings have such a tendency. Some of them are entrapped by the illusory attraction of material nature. Because the Lord is the property of the devotees and the devotees are the property of the Lord, reciprocally, the devotees are certainly transcendental to modes of material nature. There's a verse in this regard. Mam chayo vyadacharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati yaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. And Krishna explains that if one is constantly engaged in devotional service, he is above the modes of material nature. Sagunan samati yaitan, he attains the stage of Brahman. So one of the positive elements in this understanding is that if we just simply follow the program that Prabhupada gave us, Prabhupada has given us a program of devotional service, how we can make all of our lives spiritual in whatever condition of life. Basically, we have our morning program, and then we have our sadhana, do some reading, and then we engage in our work, whatever sort of work that is according to our ashram status. And in that way, one is Brahmabhuta. It's very powerful, simple, but it just takes a little bit of seriousness in regards to the nature of acting Krishna consciousness. That is a natural conclusion. Such unalloyed devotees are distinct from the mixed devotees who approach the Lord for mitigation of miseries and poverty, or because of inquisitiveness and speculation. The unalloyed devotees of the Lord are transcendentally attached to one another. For others, the Lord has nothing to reciprocate, and therefore he is called Atmarama, self-satisfied. Self-satisfied as he is the master of all monists who seek to merge into the existence of the Lord. Such monists merge within the personal effulgence of the Lord, called the Brahmajyoti, but the devotees enter into the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, which are never to be misunderstood as material. So there's a lot of important points here. It's a very big purport. But one of the points that's made is that Krishna is being described by Queen Kunti as, you have nothing to do with the actions or reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you're the most gentle and are the master of all monists. So this point is made time and time again in the Bhagavatam, and there are certain points that are really made time and time again. And if you look at the 4 essential verses of the Bhagavatam, in the second canto, 9th chapter, verses 33, 34, 35, and 36, those are called the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. Very important verses where in the essence of Bhagavatam is described. There's this point that's made, aham evasameva gre nanyad yat sat asat param. Wherein Krishna is describing to Brahma that he is beyond the action and the reaction. So we can see how in the material world everything has a cause and everything is an effect. The parents are the cause of the children are the cause of the grandchildren, and we can all trace that back to Brahma. And even Brahma is coming from the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and we hear about the Sarga, how creation happened. The Lord looked at the universe, but it's to be understood that Krishna is beyond the cause and the effect. He's beyond even Brahman. That's why he's Para-Brahman. So this whole universe is happening. It's kind of like a snow globe. You shake up the snow globe, you wind up the snow globe, and there's so many activities happening within the snow globe. But Krishna is outside of it. He's outside of that world. So you can move things in that snow globe. You can do things, but you're outside of it. And so in that way, Krishna is positioned. And so the living entities that are conditioned, we're under the impression that we're part of this world. But in actuality, when we're not in Maya, we're also in that position. We have nothing to do with this material world, which is described in the second part of that verse, where it says, "Ritartamyat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyaratmano maya yatabasa yatatamaha." And in this, Krishna is describing that whatever we do in the world, if it's not related to Krishna, if it's not related to that personality who's outside of time and space, it's Maya, and it's totally entangling. And that's why whatever we do, we have to dedicate it to Krishna, mind, body, words. And there's a process for that. And if we just follow that process nicely, and it doesn't mean we become fanatics or we become fanatical about certain things. Just try to be devotees. Take the devotional activities as they are seriously. Chant seriously, read seriously, serve your families and your ashram seriously. Do these things very nicely for Krishna, and then you'll find that you are always liberated because you're sagunan samati yaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. And then another point is made here that he's self-satisfied and therefore the most gentle and master of the monists. So he's the master of the impersonalists. I was preaching in El Paso this weekend, and I was doing a lot. It was like I was giving the disciples course. That was 4 hours a day. Then there was a 2-hour evening program every night. So it was like then talking to people afterwards. It was like 7 or 8 hours of preaching every day. And so this lady came up to me after I gave a talk, and we're speaking of Krishna, nice katha, and she came up to me and she said, Prabhu, I am follower of Adi Shankaracharya, who's, of course, the Mayavadi proponent, he was a Vaishnava. She says, how do I make what you're saying work? Because, she's very attracted to what the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, and as it's presented by Srila Prabhupada, she's very attracted to it. But I was explaining to her, yes.
Are you talking about the incarnation of Shankaracharya or imitation of Guru, like or a Mayavadi Guru?
We're talking about the Mayavadi Guru, who's an incarnation of Lord Shiva.
But were Shiva incarnated as Shankaracharya?
Yes, and the person whom Lord Chaitanya was defeating, all of the follower Prakashananda Saraswati and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, they were reading his commentary. Of course, he was actually a Vaishnava, but he was preaching Mayavad philosophy. And his last words, he's Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja. He was a Vaishnava. He also wrote the Gita Mahatma, and he also wrote the Jagannatha-astakam. So he was actually a Vaishnava, but his followers were not Vaishnavas.
So she was following him.
Yeah. And so she was having some struggle in her heart because she was feeling this attraction to Krishna. And she was not envious. She was not like an envious person or challenging, but she was simply asking. And it was very hard for her to wrap her mind around this element that Prabhupada brings in the purport. This last thing here, Prabhupada is saying, but devotees enter into the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, which are never to be misunderstood as material. So we shouldn't get our goal confused. We're going to enter into the pastimes of the Lord, and to the degree we surrender to Krishna, we experience the pastimes of the Lord in this life because we're in Lord Chaitanya's extended leelas. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness, that when we really start serving Lord Chaitanya, we start experiencing this, wow, I'm in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, because we're seeing people convert and have their lives changed by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and somehow or another you're delivering that mercy. And so, she's had a hard time wrapping her mind about that. And she's like, yeah, I understand. So you love Krishna and then you merge into nothing. I was like, no merging into nothing. That's not part of the process. She's at a very tough time. And finally I said, would you want to merge into your husband? And she looked at me very strange. She said, no. I said, so why? She couldn't even thought about it for a second. That'd be weird. I said, right, exactly. It's weird. Because there's so many Shastric evidences, and how Krishna is the master of all of them, including the monists too, that if they want to achieve that goal, they have to perform bhakti. And they know that. That's why all the Mayavadis, they come here sometimes. They're always chanting Hare Krishna. They're always talking about Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, but they have no understanding about Krishna being the absolute truth. And of course, there's the famous story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ramdas Vishwas. He was always chanting the name of Ram. And Lord Chaitanya said, no, I don't want to talk to you. He was so humble. He was like serving Vaishnavas. He's purely a perfect Vaishnava. Lord Chaitanya said, you want to become Ram. You don't want to serve Ram. And so it's important we understand that. That's the mood of our chanting. So we can go on to 28. That was a big purport.
I have a question.
Yes, Prabhu.
You said devotees aren't fanatical, and I'm just wondering, what makes it fanatical and because somebody on the outside it might appear fanatical.
Yeah, nice question. So an important point to remember is, and I've been meditating on this strongly because I kind of had some experience yesterday where I felt I was dealing with a fanatical situation. And what I was meditating on is that fanaticism is defense of faith based on fear. It's defending our faith based on fear. Wherein, so a person who's on the lower level of spiritual consciousness, if you say, for instance, like, oh, yeah, like, especially in regards to the spiritual master, the spiritual master, someone who's very close to the spiritual master has a relationship with them. They understand that they're not a normal human being, but at the same time, they're a human being simultaneously. And so one begins to have faith in the spiritual instructions of the spiritual master, while simultaneously understanding that, he may like pineapple on his pizza and I may not like pineapple on my pizza. Whereas a fanatic, if you have any question or any doubt, they tend to gaslight you because they have to defend their own faith. And this is what you see in the Christians, these, not all Christians, but these fanatical Christians, they're very scared to see someone like the devotees who are happy and who are living moral lives because that's challenging them. So they have to defend their faith. It's challenging their faith because they know if they came to the temple, I'm sure they would melt down. I always think that if they came to the temple, they would melt down because they would see that, oh my God, they have wives, they have children, they eat food, they love their kids, they're against abortion too. All of the things that, so they have to dehumanize you. And that's like the ultimate kind of form of gaslighting. And so a fanatical person does things to defend their own faith and to feel safe without actually understanding the spiritual reason. And so, Rupa Goswami touches on this when he says the things that are favorable for bhakti, or the things that are unfavorable for bhakti. He says, he talks about niyamagraha. And so niyamagraha meaning that one is either following rules and regulations just for the sake of following them or not following them and being whimsical. So it's important to understand what's the spirit behind the law. What is the spirit behind what we're doing? And that allows one to understand things in reality. For instance, I'll give an example. People come into the temple, they don't know the etiquette of the temple. So fanatical people would want to, explain to them right away, oh, you're doing it wrong, or this and that, Whereas a devotee who's more elevated would understand that the purpose of the temple is for them to become in contact with Krishna. And so all of these things are there to serve that purpose of helping us come into contact with Krishna. So Prabhupada was an expert. Prabhupada was extremely strict on himself, but in the beginning, he didn't even tell the devotees about regulative principles. So you see, it's not a matter of just rules. It's a matter of what's the purpose behind the rules. And so someone who's not fanatical understands that. And so we don't want to feel terrible about ourselves if we're not able to follow the highest standard. Because that's God is not, a reward punishment system. God isn't that type of person. Well, Jamuna, she did this, and this, and she, and you didn't do this, and this. You messed up here. And, she got up 10 minutes earlier than you did. And so actually you're going to go the lower level, the lower ring of Goloka Vrindavan. And this is kind of the weird consciousness of a fanatical person. Whereas I'm rationalizing my position based on my sadhana, based on my identification with this external manifestation of a religion. Whereas the spiritual person is more or less having a relationship with Krishna, wherein I understand the principle behind things. So I may chant my rounds in a different way, maybe at a different time. Perhaps, I have to deal because of my life, my worldly circumstances, the way in which I take prasad may be different. This particular thing this particular detail of a rule may not apply for me as much as it applies for a brahmachari or someone in the temple. And so in this way, there's differences. Whereas someone who is fanatical can't differentiate between those things. And so they end up choking themselves out, and you feel choked in their presence. You don't feel that spiritual love flowing. You don't feel that energy flowing, the grace, the mercy. It's not really there. And it's more judgment. And we see that, we've all seen devotees like that. We don't got to name any names. We've all seen devotees like that, where it's I'm better than these people on the street because I'm in here. And that's, of course, that's conditioning. This is the type of consciousness of a fanatic. And so therefore, we have to put everybody else down to make us feel we're safe in our position. We've chosen the right team. And this is not Krishna. This is not Krishna conscious at all, because I've chosen the right team. No. Actually, the process, these things are for us. All these rules and regulations are prescriptions for us. They're not for us to go and, make you do, unless someone's our disciple or our student or in our ashram. The one thing. But they're for us and for our rectification, because we've actually come to that conclusion of humility where I'm really fallen, I need these things. This is Bhakti Tirtha Swami used to chant 40 plus rounds. And one devotee asked him, he said, before he was Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he said, Prabhu, why do you do that? And he said, I'm sorry if I'm making you feel bad. I have to chant this many rounds because I I can't even function if I don't. But you don't have to do that. So in this way, he was taking it for himself. That makes sense? Thank you. Nice question. Important question. Okay. Manye tvam kalam ishanam anari niranam vibhum samam charantam sarvatra bhutanam yanmita kali. Someone can read?
My Lord, I consider your Lordship to be eternal time, the supreme controller without beginning and end, the all-pervasive one. In distributing your mercy, you are equal to everyone. The dissensions between living beings are due to social intercourse.
Okay, read some of the purport.
Kunti Devi knew that Krishna was neither her nephew nor an ordinary family member of her paternal house. She knew perfectly well that Krishna is a primeval Lord who lives in everyone's heart as a super soul, Paramatma. Another name of the Paramatma feature of the Lord is Kala, or eternal time. Eternal time is the witness of all their actions, good and bad, and thus resultant reactions are destined by him. It is no use saying that we do not know why and for what we are suffering. We may forget the misdeed for which we may suffer at this present moment, but we must remember that Paramatma is our constant companion, and therefore he knows everything, past, present, and future. And because the Bhagavata feature of Lord Krishna destines all reactions and actions, he is a supreme controller also. Without his sanction, not a blade of grass can move. The living beings are given as much freedom as they deserve, and the misuse of that freedom is a cause of suffering. The devotees of the Lord do not misuse their freedom, and therefore they are not the good sons of the Lord. Others who misuse freedom are put into miseries destined by the eternal God. The God offers the conditioned souls both happiness and miseries. It is all predestined by eternal time. As we have miseries uncalled for, so we may have happiness also without being asked, for they are all predestined by God. No one is therefore either an enemy or friend of the Lord. Everyone is suffering and enjoying the result of his own destiny. This destiny is made by the living beings in course of social intercourse. Everyone here wants to lord it over the material nature, and thus everyone creates his own destiny under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. He is all-pervading, and therefore he can see everyone's activities. And because the Lord has no beginning or end, he is known also as the eternal time God.
So, someone can reflect back to me what's being said here.
Krishna is a witness of all our activities, and it's in the heart of all. It's in our heart and the heart of every other living entity at the same time. And then every atom. Wow.
Yeah. Speaking of super soul, so what it's saying is the point here, the wisdom here. There's always, like I was explaining, one of the benefits of reading Bhagavatam and studying sections rather than just studying shloka by shloka is you get a certain feel for the message of Bhagavatam, how it's coming through time and time again. One of the big points that's always made in the Bhagavatam and in the Bhagavad Gita is that the things that happen to us are because of us. And Super Soul is simply reciprocating with us based on the judge. He's like the judge. The judge is hanging someone. He's giving someone a remuneration for some fault. He's giving someone money. So the judge is just neutral. He's just going based on the law. So the living entities, all the things that happen to us are because of us. And so that's a very difficult thing for some of us to accept. I'm speaking of at least myself, that when we find ourselves in some miserable circumstance, and it's like, I'm the cause of this. I'm the reason I'm here. And sometimes the tendency is to blame Krishna or to ask Krishna, the tendency is that Krishna help me here. Whereas the devotee doesn't actually act on that platform. The devotee understands that all this is coming to me based on my own circumstances, and therefore let me not change the material circumstances, rather let me simply use all the material facilities I have and make the best of a bad bargain, and in this way worship the Lord. So we find ourselves like, everybody wants to have the house, everybody wants to have the girl, everybody wants to have these circumstances. And Krishna will arrange everything according to our karma. But the difference is how are we acting as that comes? So Krishna explains to us, Matra Sparshas Takonteya Setoshna Sukadukada Agamat Paino Dityas Tam Statikshava Bharataha, that living entities should become tolerant in the fates of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course of time. So what does that mean? Does that mean you become like a stone? I don't feel it. One of our friends who lives at the temple now, he was kind of like that in the very beginning. Because he was very into yoga, and he was thinking, I don't feel any emotions. But you do feel emotions. Everybody feels emotions. Yes, if I poke you, it doesn't matter how spiritually advanced you are, you're going to feel it. So what is the real thing is that we don't let the circumstances of this world stop our devotional service. Yesterday I was feeling, oh my God, so many things happened. I was feeling, I don't know if I could. I was thinking, oh my Lord. I was actually thinking, I don't know if I can do this. But then we think, no, it's my duty. Let me continue on. Let me continue on. And let me not be disturbed. So we don't let it disturb our service. And so we see great examples like that in our community. Mother Sandami has been so steady for so many years. So many crazy things happen at the temple. Crazy events, crazy circumstances. Rather, she continues on. And she doesn't lose track of what actually matters, which is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, the activities of bhakti. So in this way, the living entity purifies himself of all these karmas. And so Krishna, he says in the Bhagavad Gita that I'm not envious of anybody, I'm neutral to all, but to my devotee, I'm a friend. So Krishna will take your karma and he'll arrange it in such a way that it's going to be favorable towards you coming closer to Krishna if you make that desire to come closer to Krishna. And so that's why we see devotees, they should never complain. It's a real symbol of a sadhu. He doesn't complain. He's tatikshava karunika, surida sarvadehinam, ajata shatravo shantas, sadhava sadhubhushana. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he's tolerant. First thing, tatikshava karunika, he's merciful. So in whatever circumstance he's in, he's giving mercy. Tatikshava karunika, surida sarvadehinam, he's trying to be a friend of everybody. Ajata shatravo shantas, he doesn't make enemies. Sadhava sadhubhushana, all his qualities are beautiful. And he is a sadhu. He's decorated with these qualities. So even in the worst circumstances, we can still try to maintain those qualities. And that's one of my sayings. When everything gets kind of tough, it's just I tell myself, don't freak out, don't freak out. That's kind of my saying. I want to get a shirt. Don't freak out. It's really real. It's like one of my sayings. Don't freak. Because the tendency of the conditioned soul is to react. And in this way, to run away or to fight or flight. It's actually that's that fearing propensity that we all live in. And Prabhupada explained, it's the hardest thing to overcome. Okay, we can overcome, mating to a degree. We can overcome even eating, controlling our senses to a degree. But this fearing, it's very difficult. And so when something feels like a threat or it's pain, emotional pain even, it's like, what do? I either run away, I'm not leaving the ashram. Or I'm gonna destroy whoever's causing this circumstance. And the real spiritual solution is do nothing. There was a cartoon when I was a kid, SpongeBob, and there's one episode where the three main characters, Squidward, SpongeBob, and Patrick, they get in a plane crash and they're just stuck in the forest and they have this conch and they pull the conch and it says some word. Squidward's like, we're gonna die. We gotta start a fire. And SpongeBob goes, let's ask the conch, and just pulls it. It says, nothing. And it just keeps saying, do nothing. So SpongeBob and Patrick just sit there, and Squidward saying, you're gonna do nothing. Then it shows this other plane flying, and they're saying the load's too heavy. We gotta drop the load, and then they drop the load, and it drops onto them, and it's like a perfect picnic. It's all this food and a tent and a fire. And so in this way, actually, that's how the devotee is, kind of bewildering people. What are you going to do? I'm going to chant Hare Krishna. I'm going to follow four regulative principles. I'm going to do the process of Krishna consciousness and do my duty as far as I can. My duty here is to do this. And I'm going to do it as far as I can without giving it up. When Krishna decides, yes, it's time to give it up, there will be no doubt. Krishna will make that arrangement. And even if I do this my whole life, even if you get the perfect marriage, it's cool your whole life, you will have to give it up because you're going to die. And so the difference between a karmi yogi at best or a karmi And the difference between a bhakti yogi is that the bhakti yogi is not attached to being a brahmachari, he's not attached to being married, he's not attached to working in the field or working in the altar, working in the bathroom, he's not attached to any of those things. What is he attached to? He's attached to Krishna. And so when Krishna says it's time to do something else, his love for Krishna carries him very easily. And so in this way, we have to change our attachment. Move on to the next verse. 29. Oh, Naveda kaschid bhagavam chikirshitam tave hamanasya nrinam virabanam nayasya kaschid daitos tikarichid dveshyashchayasmin vishama matir nrinam. O Lord, no one can understand your transcendental pastimes, which appear to be human and are so misleading. You have no specific object of favor, nor do you have any object of envy. People only imagine that you are partial. It's a big purport. Someone can read some purport, just a little in the first paragraph.
Lord's mercy upon the fallen souls is equally distributed. There is no one as a specific object of hostility. The very conception of the personality of God as a human being is misleading. His pastimes appear to be exactly like a human being's, but actually they are transcendental without any tinge of material contamination. He is undoubtedly known as partial to his pure devotees, but in fact he is never partial, as much as the sun is never partial to anyone. By utilizing the sun rays, sometimes even the stones become valuable, whereas a blind man cannot see the sun. Although there are enough sun rays before him.
Pause for a second. So the point here is that the Lord's pastimes are bewildering the conditioned souls because we think that Krishna is favoring demigods and favoring the devotees and hurting the demons, but actually it's not. It's simply his justice. And this is why, sometimes we hear this when we're preaching to Christians out there. Well, we say, how does the all-merciful God send you to hell? Well, they say, well, he's all merciful and he's all loving, but he's also all just. Which is true, we agree with that, but they don't understand the concept of what that means. How are you all merciful and all just at the same time? But if you understand the ontology of the situation, it makes sense. How is Krishna all just? Krishna slaughters the demons. What happens to them when they die? They go back to Godhead. So simultaneously being all merciful and all just and all purifying.
Sometimes they merge though into the body, into brahmacharya.
Yeah, most of the time they do. They're still liberated. Some don't, but majority of them do. Oh, actually, Prabhupada says so many different things. Actually, in the Krishna book, Prabhupada says Kamsa went to Vaikuntha, and then later on he says Kamsa went into impersonal Brahman. So generally, it's understood that the demons go to the impersonal Brahman now. So in this way, so then there's examples given that the sun gives light to everyone, but seems partial because it imparts its own qualities to the sunstone. It's indifferent to the blind. It gives joy to the chakravaka birds. It is harmful to the thieves and owls. However, the cause of this difference is the qualities of the specific object that comes in contact with the sun. Similarly, although the Lord is not partial, different people relate with the Lord in different ways according to their own qualities. So therefore, we're going to relate to the Lord in our own qualities. So the quality of envy makes us antagonistic toward the Lord. The quality of love makes us attached to the Lord. The quality of purity makes us close to the Lord. So the point here is that Krishna is saying, surrender unto me, but Lord Chaitanya is saying, Chaito Darpanam Arjunam, that you can chant Hare Krishna, and in this way you'll be able to relate to the Lord in the proper way. That's why we go distribute the holy name to everybody. And you see sometimes, people, they hear the holy name, and they immediately, it burns them. You see on Harinam, you see people like that. I've seen people actually turn into demons, like exorcism level, like manifestations of demons. I don't want to even say what they say, some crazy stuff to me. Remember that? One time we saw this lady, she had I think something was weird. She had railroad spikes bent around her arms, and they were bloody. There was blood dripping down her arms, and she came up to us on the street. And then, she started saying all kinds of crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. And so, but the point is, she was affected by the holy name. So the demons, they don't like it, but in any case, even though they don't like it, they're purified by it. So in this way, Krishna, he purifies everything he comes in contact with. Rajavidya, Rajagriyam, Pavitamidam Uttamam. He's the supreme pure. So he'll purify you of all of your darkness by the process of coming in contact with him. But, until we have that clear vision, we can't see him for what he is. And this is why we were just speaking. We had one great devotee here, Padmanayan Prabhu, a wonderful devotee from Mayapur, head of the Mayapur Institute. And there was one spiritual man here. And this person really, he thought he was very advanced spiritually. And he'd say, no, I've seen so many mystic people, people who are floating and all these crazy things. But he could not wrap his mind around who was actually a very advanced spiritual person and who wasn't. Because he didn't have that vision. Just like on this planet, how many people knew Krishna was Krishna? Only a handful. How many people understood who Lord Chaitanya was? Only a handful. Even Srila Prabhupada. We see some great personality. We have a sannyasi come here. We were just hearing of Ganapati Maharaj. Parmeshwar was here. He was explaining, Ganapati Maharaj is so elevated, giving these powerful classes in Phoenix right now. Ganapati Maharaj, his main service, he just does books all year long. And so when he's on books, people are not seeing this great Swami. They're just seeing, some old man at the Grand Canyon. And so, that's why we go out and do books. All of a sudden, here I'm on this Vyasa-san, and I was in El Paso and all these Indians, and so there was so much apparent worship. People were bowing down, touching this is over the top, But then you go on books and people are like, cussing at you and ignoring you and sometimes literally criticizing you for hours with megaphones. So whatever happens, all of a sudden they can't perceive the reality of the situation. Therefore, we have to purify ourselves to see things as they are. That's why it's necessary to cultivate the mode of goodness. So that's our process. It all kind of folds back into our process that, why do we follow regulative principles? People ask this. Because you're not able to perceive things clearly if you're drunk. You're not able to perceive things clearly if you're contaminated in your consciousness with lust. You're not able to see things clearly if you're full of, meat. It dulls your senses. So in this way, one is not able to see things as they are. So the devotee, he is taking a life and he's dedicating his life to mode of goodness, where I'm going to follow regulative principles. I'm going to rise early. I'm going to, live my life in a certain way in which now I can begin to see things as they are. And so in due course of time, you begin to be able to see things how they are. Like, see how disgusting it is to eat meat. After so many years, you'd be a vegetarian. All of a sudden, it's like, you look at some meat, it's just disgusting. And you question how I haven't ever even thought about eating meat. Or doing some of the things, whatever sinful activities we've done. It's like it makes no sense anymore because your perception is shifted. And so therefore, chanting Hare Krishna, developing mode of goodness allows us to live in a way in which the Lord will reciprocate with us. And this is why it's like we don't want to endeavor so hard to see the Lord. Rather, if we purify ourselves, the Lord will reciprocate with us. So Kunti here is just so full of immense Krishna conscious philosophy. And so this point is being made that no one can understand your transcendental pastimes, which appear to be human and are so misleading. So how are these pastimes understood? They're understood in surrender. When we accept that the Lord's pastimes are inconceivable. Otherwise, it's very difficult to even wrap our mind around how the Lord is lifting Govardhan Hill, or why he's with so many 16,108 wives. How is Krishna doing these things? So we can, then we question, is this a myth? But when you're purified, it makes sense. All of a sudden you can understand the reality. And you can actually see Krishna working in your own life. Therefore, Krishna elevates us gradually. He starts us with Bhagavad Gita, and there's a gradual elevation process. So that's why it behooves us to just focus on what we got, every day. Do our service, do our. Okay, we'll do one more verse, one more shlok. Janma karma ja vishvatman ajasya karuturatmanaha triyan rishishu yadashu tad adyanta virambanam. Of course, it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work, though you are inactive, that you take birth, though you are the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend amongst animals, men, sages, and aquatics. Verily, this is bewildering. The transcendental pastimes of the Lord are not only bewildering, but also apparently contradictory. In other words, they are all inconceivable to the limited thinking power of the human being. The Lord is the all-pervading supersoul of all existence, and yet he appears in the form of a boar amongst the animals, in the form of a human being as Rama, Krishna, etc., in the form of a rishi like Narayan, in the form of an aquatic like a fish. It is said that he is unborn and he has nothing to do. In the Shruti mantra, it is said that the Supreme Brahman has nothing to do. No one is equal to or greater than him. He has manifold energies and everything is being performed by him perfectly by automatic knowledge, strength, and activity. All these statements prove without any question that the Lord's activities, forms, deeds are all inconceivable to our limited thinking power. And because he is inconceivably powerful, everything is possible in him. Therefore, no one can calculate him exactly. Every action of the Lord is bewildering to the common man. He cannot understand by the Vedic knowledge, but he can be easily understood by the pure devotees because they are intimately related with him. Devotees therefore know that although he appears amongst the animals, he is not an animal, nor a man, nor a rishi, nor a fish. He is eternally the Supreme Lord in all circumstances. Does anybody know the verse Prabhupada quoted the most out of any other verse in terms of his classes and in his purport? The verse he quoted the most out of all was Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvataha tvakva deham punarjanma naiti mameti surjuna. One who understands the transcendental nature of my birth and activities does not take his birth again in this material world, O son of Kunti, but attains to my eternal abode. So Krishna is saying that if you understand in truth, in tattva, why I appear and why I disappear, then you don't take birth again. And so in regards to this verse, when Srila Prabhupada asked the devotees, why does Krishna take birth? What's the reason for Krishna taking birth?
Well, there's different reasons, right? One, to restore Dharma if it's lost, to defend the devotees, to destroy humans.
Yeah, Prabhupada, that's what the devotees said, and Prabhupada said no. Because Krishna can destroy the demons with a lightning bolt. Krishna can protect the devotees with all his mystic powers. Krishna can restore Dharma through various agents.
Enact his transcendental pastimes.
Why does he enact his transcendental pastimes on earth?
It's for the pleasure of his devotees.
Yeah, the pleasure of his devotees. And so a devotee said, for the pleasure of the devotees, and Prabhupada said, yes, you are liberated. So Krishna's main business is to please the devotees. And so this is, Gurudev, our Guru Maharaj, Jivananda Prabhu, he gave a talk once in regards to this and how love is the key to understanding Krishna. Bhakti mama bijananti yavanyas yasmi chatvataha tatamam tatvato gitas vishate tadanantaram. Only by pure unalloyed devotional service can I be understood as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when one is purified by such understanding, one can enter into the kingdom of God. And so the point here is that the Lord is apparently appearing in these forms, but it's not that he is these forms. He's actually doing this out of love. And we know all the stories of these various incarnations. It's actually, you can pinpoint the love of each part. Why he appears Lord Boar? Out of the love for Mother Earth. And out of the love for Brahma, and to actually also out of love for Jai and Vijay, to fight with Hiranyaksha, and also Swayambhu and Manu, both in the Nila Vraha and the Sweta Vraha, the white Vraha and the red Vraha. So the Lord is appearing as Raha. Why is he appearing as Lord Nrsingadev? Out of love for Prahlad Maharaj. Why is he appearing as Krishna? To love Yashoda, Nanda, Devaki, Vasudev, all the devotees in Vrindavan, and to give us a chance to actually have that taste and get the pleasure of being able to know Krishna's pastimes. And so Krishna is acting only on this loving platform. In this way, Krishna's leelas are inconceivable to materially conditioned souls because they're conditioned, they're used to acting on the platform of need. I need this, therefore I'm responding. I'm always in a reactive state. Whereas the pure devotees and those who, and Krishna himself, they're not in the reactive state. They're in the state of being spontaneously acting out of love for Krishna. And so in this way, they're in a different energy. In this whole section of Bhagavad Gita, you hear Avajananti mam muda manusim tanumashritaha param bhava majananto mamabhuta maheshvara. That, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They don't know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. And he says, moga shya moga karmano moga jnana vachetasa rakshashim asayam chaiva mohinim prakritim shrita, that they're moga shya moga karmano, their karma, all their fruitive activities, moga shya moga karmano moga jnana vachetasa, their culture of knowledge, their hopes for liberation, because they take shelter of demoniac and atheistic views, they're all defeated. They're all defeated. So if we don't understand this element of Krishna as the Lord of all that be, but then he says, in exact opposite of that, Mahatmanas Timam Partha Daivim Prakritim Ashritaha, that the Mahatmas, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature, and all of the Krishna's pastimes are happening under Yoga Maya, the divine nature, whose ultimate presiding deity is Srimati Radharani. And, all the expansions of that Shakti, that means Tulsi Maharani, Vrinda Devi. And so all of these things are happening under their supervision. Yoga Maya is arranging these wonderful, extraordinary pastimes that take place. And this is why when you're around a very pure devotee who's preaching Krishna consciousness, there's an extraordinary feeling and you see extraordinary things taking place because they're under this divine Shakti. Mahatmanas Tumam Partha Daivim Prakriti Mashrita Vajantyananya Manaso Gyata Buddhitamavya, because they know me as the original person, supreme and inexhaustible. They understand Krishna's position. Therefore, Satatam Kirtayantamam, they're always chanting my glories. They're endeavoring with great determination to serve me, and they're bowing down before me with great devotion. Nitya Yukta Upashite, they're always connected with me in love. So when we have that constant chanting of Hare Krishna, and we're actually endeavoring to serve Krishna, and we're bowing down before Krishna in the temple, then we can understand Krishna. And Krishna confirms that. He says, Maya Shakta Mano Partha Yogam Yumjan Madashraya Asham Sayam Samagram Mam Geta Gasyasya Touchtrinu. Geta Gasyasya Touchtrinu. Just here, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, one can know me free from doubt. So this way we can know Krishna. So how do we get that? What's the process for getting that? The process for getting that is serving the devotees and associating with the devotees. Shri Shushro Shradanasya Vasudeva Katadruchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra. Serving those devotees who are free from vice. We develop a desire and a taste to hear those messages. Those messages purify our heart, and just by having our heart purified from that desire to hear, we become very enlightened in Krishna consciousness. This is the process. So it all comes down to that mercy of the devotee, that we can enter into this world where Krishna is the God of love, not the God of, just doing things right and wrong, punishing and so forth. So, if there are any comments, questions, and then we can end here otherwise.
I just think it's such an amazing philosophy we have. People understood what it said in that one purport about freedom, that there's no one to blame but ourselves. We can't blame our parents or our circumstances. Our misuse of freedom, choices we made in that got us to where we are now. And that same freedom to choose can create the next body we're going to have, or to get out of this whole system. So it's just such a different worldview than 99.9% of people have.
Yeah, it's the supreme philosophy. And if you realize that, it gives you so much, it's so empowering. because you have the choice right now to change. And that's, the present is creating the past because the present will become the past, and the present is creating the future because the present is what we do in the present is going to affect our future. So the present is everything in that sense. And so what we do now, we have that opportunity now to make those choices which are Krishna conscious. And so and it becomes very simple as you purify your heart. What is the thing to do? How do I act out of love here? Essentially, how do I act out of love? And the ultimate and easiest, safest way to act out of love is to assist in the spreading of Krishna consciousness. That's the ultimate love. That's the ultimate benevolence that the Guru is giving us. He's given us the opportunity to assist him and to assist Lord Chaitanya, who is the most munificent personality. Yeah. It's quite amazing. Our philosophy is it's liberating, quite literally. The Parameshwar Prabhu gave class yesterday, and he was saying, just people don't understand this, and if they study these books, they can become free from this suffering. And so these books, it's so liberating. The more you understand it, he's, devotees tend to talk about what they embody the most, and so he's such a, he's radically, and I mean say that in the most severe way. He's probably one of the most radically surrendered people I've ever come across in my entire life. Without a doubt, radically surrendered to the mission of Srila Prabhupada, to the point where, his austerities challenge every yogi in the Himalayas. The austerity he performs, living in that van for 20 years, and going to Mount Rushmore where it's cold, eating granola, not seeing any devotees, not eating hot prasadam, just sacrificing to give these books out. It's quite amazing. But you see it, he's actually so blissful, the devotee. But this understanding that I'm serving Krishna, I'm not the master of anything. So that people have to understand that. Think about it, if people understood that, it just changes everything. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Anything else? Grantha Rashmid Bhagavatam Ki. Thank you, Mridanga Prabhu, for coming.